Hey Giuseppe, great track. Can you change the riser at 2 minutes and 23? It sounds too edgy. Can you make this sound more like a sensor swinging in the air? We want to make an album where strings are mangled in a way that sounds like creepy animal noises in reverse. Can you perfectly recreate the sounds that is heard at the beginning of the reference? This sounds too horror. This doesn't sound horror enough. If you're wondering, what the hell is this? I took notes of some of the feedback that I've been receiving from my publisher for my work as a composer for library music and trailer music, which is something that I've been kind of on and off for many years, and now I'm more motivated to focus and take it seriously. Something that you certainly notice is that all of this feedback stress on one very aspect, which is sound design. And this is because in the last decade or so, cinematic composition has been leaning more and more towards the idea of composition through sound. And I think that this is something that in the community of composers is not discussed enough because, since I started selling other sounds, I had the privilege to meet a lot of great, talented composers. But, if there is something that I'm kind of sensing is that sound design is considered as something detached from composition, as a sort of dark, esoteric thing, that is just up to guys like me who just concentrate on that. So in this video, I would like to share with you a little bit the way I approach sound design, not just as a sample library developer, but also as a composer. I spend considerable amount of time to create my own samples that I don't necessarily use for my releases. I just store them, save them in a folder. It can be anything, it can be war horns, it can be Foley sounds, it can be weird experimentation with my synths, etc. Because you never know when you're going to need something, regardless of how weird that might sound. If there is something that I really believe is that sound design is not a dark, technical, boring thing. Sound design at heart is making music. Sound design is basically composition. Different kind of composition, of course, if you happen to come from a, let's say, conventional music education, I don't know, you are either of the music school or you have studied very deeply orchestration, arrangement, etc. Of course, that's very, very important, hands down. But also having the skills to express who you are as a composer, not just through your compositions in a conventional way, but also through the way you create your own sound, is definitely something that sets you apart from many others. Because it is true that we live in a golden age of sample libraries. There are so many great sample library developers who make a lot of great stuff available for composers. This is true. But still, despite of this abundance of great sounds and great instruments that are sample-based, you still want to create your own sounds because, again, you never know what you're going to need and what your client is looking for. So once that I have this long series of one-shots that I've just recorded, I'll go through them and I will handpick the one that I like the most. Now, depending on a case-to-case basis, I might decide to just leave them as they are, just save them in my folder, or I can decide to go through with designing sounds and maybe layering and combine them with other sounds, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. And as an additional layer, I'm using the Warhorn Designer instrument in Maleventum Pompeii again, which for the record is based on 3 layers of raw warhorn sounds, again from ancient Roman horns, which can be combined in a variety of ways. So you can pick any layer from this menu, from this other one, and from this other one, play around with the setting and come up with your own sound. And I set this to play mostly in the lower register, whereas the previously recorded horns sit a little bit more in the higher register. So I want to see what happens if I combine 2 sounds that sit in different slots, so to speak, of the spectrum. And also I have selected the random trigger function in the Warhorn Designer in Maleventum Pompeii, which basically at every time that a note is triggered, a different combination of samples here is selected. So I want to leave a little bit of room to randomness to see what I come up with. And as you see, I've put these 2 tracks, the previous horns from Kyma Haken Continuum and Maleventum Pompeii Warhorn Designer, in the same group. I've applied a little bit of compression here. And this group will be received by this other track, and so I'll just hit record and just let's see what happens. So now I have a collection of completely new sounds that I can just save and use at my convenience whenever it's needed. And my personal suggestion, if you don't mind, is to spare some time to do this kind of experiment separately from the actual composition. Because in my experience, if you start doing this kind of stuff while doing a track, your attention will drift. You will just go on sound design and you will lose of sight the main purpose of creating the track that you've been asked to create or the track that you want to create. So I think that a very good habit is to spare a few hours every week just to give yourself the time to wander and to experiment with sound, and you will always come up with something that is usable or that can be useful in future projects. Now, you have seen that I use the Haken Continuum Kyma. This is pretty advanced stuff. Of course, you don't need that to create interesting sound. Basically, anyone today can create good sound with anything. I really mean it. It's just a matter if you really want to focus on it, if you really want to explore, and how you are willing to go to the extra mile to create something new and something interesting. Guys, I hope that you like this video. If you're interested in getting a little bit more into the way I do things, you see that I'm just keeping on a very creative level. I don't go too much in technical details. Just let me know what you think, if you want me to keep doing these videos or not. By the way, thanks for watching. Bye.